And we're back for part two of Samuel Lowry. I hope you've enjoyed and taken a lot from the first episode. Thanks for waiting for the release of this one. I know it's only been 3 days, but still, I'm sure people have been like, "What happened? What's the next part?" And did Sam kind of find his way? So, yeah, put your headphones in. We probably got them in now, and sit back and listen. Cheers, guys. See you at the end. Hey guys, welcome back to After Hours. Sam and I have just been to the amazing Cycle 360 in Douglas. It's a cycle shop, not just a clever name, but it's also an amazing little cafe. And I had eggs Benedict and an amazing oat milk latte, and Sam had
smashed avocado.
No, you didn't. You had fajitas scrambled.
Yeah.
Was that what it was?
Smashed avocado. That was the highlight.
I thought that was a different thing.
No.
You did have the smashed avocado. Yeah. Was it good?
It was wonderful.
Yeah,
wonderful.
Mine was amazing. I've had it before in there. And the coffee's just freaking die for. I mean, I don't know about you, Sam, but since getting sober, I have had a bit of a caffeine addiction, to say the least. How has that been with you, and what maybe have you done to rectify that caffeine addiction, Samuel?
Well, I've had a caffeine addiction for many years, and I've been in a process of that over the past, let's say nearly 12 years, because I didn't drink tea or coffee. Obviously, didn't drink tea or coffee in the drinking days. Then it just became a staple. The coffee did, you know.
Yeah.
So over the years, coffee, and then started limiting it though, because I started realizing it was affecting my sleep. So rather than drinking it later on, I'd kind of curb that and drink something else, water mainly. But recently, Jimmy, and listen, I'm telling everybody that I meet and speak to that I've found, or should I say, discovered cacao. Yeah. So this is chocolate. It's a chocolate drink, but it is freaking wonderful. And you can attest to this.
I can attest to that. Yeah. It's not just a fancy hot chocolate. It's the process this morning.
The ritual, man.
The ritual of cooking it up, for want of a better word. Cooking it up. We weren't cooking it up, but to have the cacao with the oat milk and the honey all mixed together, and then holding the brew close to our heart and doing the gratitude and just taking a moment and breathing and
setting the intention of the day.
And it's been, how's the day been? Day's been
wonderful,
amazing,
man. It's been absolutely fantastic.
So the weather's been absolutely shite.
But that is all a matter of perception.
Absolutely.
As we just touched on.
It's
feeding the earth, brother.
It's really feeding the earth. And I wish we were recording the whole time, because the banter that we've had in the cafe was just...
we get a little bit more serious when the recording.
This is the serious stuff, but we've just been having a laugh in the cafe.
So we've literally, I think we touched on before, that we've literally not stopped talking.
Since you got off the ferry.
Obviously, we've slept since then.
I don't know. I mean, I was probably sleeping talking in my sleep.
Yeah. Maybe.
That'll be a different recording.
But the conversation's been rich.
It's been rich and fulfilling, and I'm loving every minute of it. So,
as am I.
As I say, we've probably had a little bit of a break in the episodic linear chronology of, I don't know what I'm saying now, of the episodes. This is probably episode 2 now, if you're going to do it that way. So thanks for waiting, guys. Thanks for coming back after Sam said that he was starting to believe.
Yeah, so I was starting to believe that there was another way. I saw Roland, as I touched on. He was on his recovery journey, looking healthy, I'd come out of it, should we say. I still didn't know how the hell I was going to get there. However, I kept going to the appointments. You know, I kept going to Inspire, which is a local drug and alcohol service, and making those appointments. At this point as well, I didn't really touch on before. I was gradually losing more weight. I'm only a light person anyway, but I was losing weight, and I was just progressively getting exhausted. You know what I mean? And just not well.
Just fatigue.
Not well.
Fatigue,
fatigue. Not eating. You know, I'd eat like. At this point, I don't know when I'd had a full meal. You know what I mean? I'd struggle to have a bite of a lasagna, you know, that I'd got from a takeaway.
Yeah.
After a day, so I was not eating properly at all. Yeah. You know, so again, here I'm living at my mum's, in my mum's box room, and it was August, so it was like a month after my 29th birthday. And it was like a bit late, mid-August, should we say. I woke up, I was in the box room, and I had a little bit of, which this is quite rarity, I had a little bit of cider left in a cup, which like...
In the morning,
yeah. So I'd obviously passed out, but I was there, it's like, oh, nice one, I've got that, bang. Necked it, you know, it's that elation, and it's like, oh, I've got it, I've got beer right next to me, I'll have it now. Then I think I passed out again for a bit, and then I woke up, and I just fucking felt this incredible pain in my abdomen. And like, I kind of walked to the toilet, and I had a pee, but it felt like I couldn't pee properly, and my stomach was kind of gone like hard as well.
Right.
You know, rock hard, you know, because like the previous month I've just been on one.
Yeah.
You know, so whatever, I wasn't noticing what was going on in the body, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was like, got back, sat on the bed, and I was like, there's something going on here, and my breath started to get a bit laboured, you know, shallow. So I kind of sat on the bed. I was like, my mum's bedroom was like next door, so I was like, Mum, I don't feel well here. You know, it's like, it's a general. I've not felt well for a while.
Yeah, but this is different.
But this is different.
Yeah.
So I kind of like went in, and she could see that I was struggling. You know what I mean? And she said, "Do you think you might need an ambulance?" I was like, "Right, okay, but will you speak to him?"
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I really don't. I'm not up for this call. You know what I mean?
But I think when you're at that point where you've said, you've not gone, no, don't. You're obviously worried about yourself. You're admitting that, actually, do you know what? That might be the best idea here. Yeah. I don't know what this is, and this is
generally in the past, it's like, nah, don't. So, like, I'm concerned as well here. You know, I'm very concerned. Yeah. So I thought, because I was thinking about it, because I'm writing about this actually, this period of my life at the minute. And it was the time of mobiles, but I didn't have... Hi, fairies.
Sorry, did I say that in the front? I did say it, yeah. So, but did I tell people why we were doing that?
Yeah.
Because they'd be like, cool.
So they'll understand. Yeah. Yeah, I did it. I had a mobile. I owned a mobile, but the battery might have gone or whatever. And I needed to get the phone from downstairs, the house phone. Yeah. And I got to the top of the stairs, and again, bang, serious pain, like in the left side. And I had to like sit down on the top step, you know, and trying to get my breath, and it was just, I can't describe this pain. It was horrendous. So I tried to stand up and couldn't. You know, this is at the top of the stairs. I couldn't, so I was thinking, shit, I'm going to have to go down on my ass. This is like my guts hurting, my pain in my side. I'm getting breathless, so I literally had to go down the stairs on my ass. You know, so this time frame of me getting down the stairs, it was get down a step, take a deep breath, compose myself. Yeah. And I did the 13 mini mountains, I call them. You know what I mean? I had to do it that, and no word of a lie, it took me about 15 minutes.
Because each one's painful.
Yeah, there was a lot of pain going on. So then I got like to downstairs, managed to get on the chair that was in front of the window at the time, and the phone's on the side. And I thought to myself, shit, man, I'm not going to be able to get this phone back up to my mum. You know what I mean? So I had to kind of like, with all the strength that I have, shout my mum down. So she got ready, blah, blah, blah. Come down, did the phone call, paramedics come, and, you know, they do the relevant checks, and they determined that I had to, you know, go to hospital.
Yeah.
Best course of action. You know, at this point, the ambulance had been out to my mum so many times, for both of us, you know, for my mum as well. So they determined,
and I think, sorry to butt in, but I think
okay.
that sometimes the medical services, you're getting flagged. Do you know what I mean? The amount of times you get called out to one address, and if it's the same person, that's all going in your medical record. So they're just thinking, these people are doing it to themselves.
Yeah.
Why are we continuously helping them? And that is one of the main problems with addiction. They think you don't need help anymore because you can sort this. You're doing this to yourself. Why are we spending our good time coming out and helping you when you're just going to keep doing it again?
Yeah.
And that's the scary part.
You to a degree, you can understand it. And that's coming from someone that desperately needed that help at the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But you get it. You get that sort of mindset.
Well, because they're not of the understanding that this is not something we want to do to ourselves. It's an addiction.
People that aren't educated in it do think that, you know.
Yeah.
Think that, why don't they just stop? Well, anyway, But,
yeah, Sam, why didn't you just stop?
Oh, well, I don't know. I should have done, shouldn't I? So they came out anyway. It was determined that they, you know, had to get me to hospital. I went to Blackburn at the time. But they had to get the chair in, you know. I literally couldn't move. I couldn't stand without severe pain. So they got me into the back of the ambulance, and I was like led on the gurney, whatever you want to call it, in the back of the ambulance, and said, right, we're gonna, you know, put the cannula in. And so because the pain was so severe and they could see, I was struggling. You know, they gave me morphine in the back of the ambulance.
Have they said what it might be at this point, or
my recollection? I don't know.
You don't know what they're saying.
I don't know. But I think they suspect quite a few things. It comes about what it is.
Right.
So she gave me like the legal dose of morphine that she gave us falls in the ambulance on the way to the hospital, and I was like, free drug, woo! How long does this shit take to work? Like, she says, like, it's really, really fast acting.
Should be working now.
Should be, but I could still feel this pain, and the ambulance set off, and honestly, you could feel every bump in the road. It was like every bang, and then the morphine must have kicked in, bang, blackness. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're out. Yeah,
out of it. So obviously, they took me to hospital, and I've got one kind of solid memory of the first week.
Oh, wow!
Yeah, of being in hospital, and this was me waking up in a private room, like in the hospital, attached to the drip, which are now like called banana bags. You know, they've got vitamin in and all that that they give to alcohol abuse patients, whatever you want to call it. So I'm attached to a drip, and there's no one about. Drip's on wheels, so I'm like, I need to try and go to the toilet here. You know, so I struggled. So I got up, you know, holding onto my wheeled companion. Got to the toilet, struggled, but it probably took me about 5 minutes to get to like a couple of metres away. Managed to have a bit of a pee, but not fully. Things weren't working properly, you know what I mean? But I realised, like, I was all gowned up. I had the hospital gown on, barefoot. Lifted my gown up to have a pee, you know, again, had a little pee, but just looked at my gut, and it was like, again, it's swollen.
Yeah.
But I noticed like a yellow tinge, which I had not noticed before. I was like, what the you know what I mean, what's going on here? Like, obviously suspected. Right, okay. Right,
what you see maybe sometimes on a movie or a film of like 60, 70-year-old alcoholic that's abused the whole life. That's the kind of gut that I'm imagining right now.
Well, yeah, and it was,
you're,
you know,
29?
29,
Yeah.
you know, and this rock solid
Yeah.
gut, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I struggled back to the bed, and again, that's a solid memory I have. And then blackness, because they must have been giving me a lot of painkillers. They must have been, you know, I would have been detoxing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to be able to remember. But when I remember started coming round and a light in my face, and it's the doctors going, well, yeah, heavily jaundice. So suspected liver damage and acute pancreatitis.
Jesus.
So that was what was going on.
That's the pain.
You know what I mean? And this swollen thing, I think was linked with the lady, the nurse did say ascites, but that's
what I thought. Yes.
But but I think that's kind of like later stages.
So there was no fluid in that.
No,
I
don't remember that they had to drain it, but I don't know.
You don't know.
I'd actually like to look at my medical records and see if we've got a detailed account of it. But I still have paperwork that the nurse gave me about ascites, and it sounds like ascites.
Yeah.
So was it?
Was it? And that's...
Well, it was all, you know, this acute pancreatitis, all
linked,
linked, man. So, and so I was jaundice, so liver damage, and all that. And I was started coming round, and I was like, what? You know, what the fuck, man? This is serious now.
Yeah.
You know, not that it wasn't serious before.
No, but now it's like, oh shit.
Yeah, and I was literally. This is what. I know the description's gone quick, but it's probably like 4 or 5 years after my dad had died.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm there, like, wow, I'm gonna die of what my dad died of, but 30 years his junior.
Yeah. So time, whatever you think your dad had an issue, like you've doubled that, tripled that in your short lifetime at this point.
30 years younger than he was, or 35 years younger than he was, and I was like, no, this
is not right.
This isn't right. And it fucking terrified me. If I'm honest, it absolutely terrified me. And
he wouldn't be terrified.
I think for the first time though, within like my I call it my drinking career, so you get the point. That I was scared of what I was doing, because before this, I would have welcomed that shit. I wanted to die, you know. I've not quite gone into all the I've self-harmed and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Took tablets, not giving a shit, not wanting to wake up. You know, I wanted to die.
Yeah.
But this episode, I was like, whoa, no. I don't want to.
I suppose in a way it was out of your control at this point. It was like, you've done this, but now it's like you're probably going to have a really slow and painful, horrible demise,
death.
Yeah,
you know, and the said, you know, the doctor said, like, we're not just saying this, but if you carry on, drinking like you're drinking, you've got about a year. This is at 29 years old, man.
and it's a year of complete and utter just horror. You know, your insides break down, they start bleeding internally and all that.
All your organs start failing. You know, multiple organ failure. It ain't pleasant.
No.
You know, it's
and at
horrendous.
29, not even going to maybe see your 31st birthday, but you know, Jesus. But
with that, you know, and I was getting all this news, and I was like, something has to change. And something did, man. I've tried to write about this on several occasions, but it's difficult because I call it a spiritual awakening, you know, or an awakening of sorts, because I think I've had several since then. Do you know what I mean? So I wouldn't just call it a spiritual awakening. It's different levels of awakening. Because before that, man, I didn't give a shit. And it was just, but something changed in me, you know. And a lady from the local drug and alcohol services was working in the hospitals, like a nurse, an Inspire nurse. I spoke with Inspire. I didn't know her, but she came across my case and like laid it out to me basically of what what my options were.
Right,
Of,
right.
you know, right, if you go back out, I'm worried about you. If you go back out there,
Yeah,
you're not long for this world.
yeah.
But please consider residential rehab. I call this lady my angel, man, because she convinced me to do residential rehab.
Right.
And before that, I wasn't up for it.
Yeah.
You know, before that, Roland had suggested it, and I just wasn't. But at this point, I was absolutely prepared to take on board anything that was suggested.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And honestly, if it wasn't for her coming across my case on that day,
Mm-hmm.
I probably would have gone back out there and started drinking again. You know?
Yeah.
So honestly,
It's what we're saying about sliding doors and the right person, the right place, the right time. Yeah.
And it was like, so I'm, you know, meant to be here for whatever reason. You know, when I was in that hospital bed, it was like, it's not my time.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Without a doubt. Yeah.
And that was the start of the process of, like, she actually brought in a leaflet to show me some treatment centres, and at the time, AA to me, cult. It's fucking cult. I don't want to go to an AA rehab. I didn't have any knowledge about it.
But
my
that was your perception.
Perception of it was cult, so it was like crossed off all the AA ones.
Yeah.
Bang, bang, bang in the booklet she gave me. It was a pretty cool little booklet with little
With
pictures
like all your brochures
of my choices.
Yeah.
So I saw one, and it was in St Anne's, which is near Blackpool, and I was like, bang, that's the one. I want to go to that one. So within that, which I only learned later, she pulled a lot of strings on.
And this was Shardale.
It was Shardale.
Yeah.
But behind the scenes, she did a lot of work for me.
Right.
And I've not seen her since. I've not seen her since. Man.
And you've not, like...
I've tried, because I thought I had
because
a
you're
number
obviously
and
in the system. And
Yeah. But,
wow.
Because
obviously you want to say thanks.
I want to say thanks. And I think she was called Caroline, but I'm not sure.
Right.
I'm not sure of her name, because it was all
Oh yeah, you were a mess.
blurry. But
to be honest, you were dying.
I deserve her. It's not all of my life, but she's the reason I'm still fucking here.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and
that, I can't stress how important that point of contact is for people.
It's not even just to say thanks to her, it's to like say thank you for my life.
Look, you know what I mean? Like nearly 12 years later, and I'm fucking doing all right.
Yeah, you're doing more than all right.
Do you know what I mean?
You're a pinnacle of strength, and you're helping other people as well, like myself.
Yeah.
You know.
Maybe one day I'll come across her and meet her again. But you know, you never know. She might hear this and think, "Shit, that's me."
Well, I mean, I thank you. I think my listeners are that broad, but yeah, maybe.
One day, man.
One day.
Manifest.
So
yeah, she pulled so many strings for me. But get this, yeah, right? She would have had me into the rehab straight from the hospital.
Yeah.
However, I had to go back home to my mum's. Yeah, so exactly the same environment I've been in, blah blah blah, because the person that signed off the funding was on holiday, so they couldn't get a signature for me to this. So just think of the previous 9 years, me being out for 2 weeks, the risk that poses. It's quite a gamble.
It's a massive gamble. Yeah, because what are you going to do? You know, and that'll happen across the board. People will be going back out because they're not getting in.
Well, not everybody would have had this fucking awakening that I had.
Yeah, honestly, you were just ready at that time, and it needed to happen now.
Something was guiding me, I'm telling you. Because I came out, I was fucking drinking green tea. I was back at my mum's.
Yeah.
I was drinking green tea. I was just researching stuff. I went to visit Shardale I went on the train on my own.
Yeah.
Went and visited, got shown around by a lad that I'm now fucking really good friends with. And we've been friends ever since. Come back, stayed at my mum's. So I was there for 2 weeks before I could actually go back in. not go back in, but go into treatment.
And
So
you,
I had the last Librium tablet on the last day just before coming out of hospital.
yeah,
So I was on it I was in hospital for about 2 weeks, week of it, I can't remember. And then I had a 2 week kind of waiting time until I went into treatment, where within that, I went to visit the place, and it just reinforced it was the place for me.
and so you'd obviously detoxed on the Librium, and then how were those 2 weeks at your mum's? I mean, were you thinking I'm going to go out and have a drink today, or no?
This
you were
is
like,
this is the strange thing, man.
Yeah.
Something
Click.
either left me or entered when I was in that hospital,
yeah,
because I was so freaking focused on getting into the rehab, which was in 2 weeks' time.
and that detox gave you that kind of little stepping stone.
Yeah, because I wasn't waking up shaking.
You weren't having to go through
so,
withdrawal.
Yeah. So I had that basically a 2 week detox, so the alcohol was completely out of my system. So I wasn't waking up needing to sort the physical side of it out.
Hey guys, welcome back. We've been from Cycle 360, drove back, took a little detour down to see the mothership, my mother, Dorothy, because Sam, I think she said Sam had spoken to her on the phone when I was in the rehab facility, so they'd never actually met, so it was nice to kind of, for them both to meet. Had a cup of tea, a couple of catch up, and then I took a little trip down to Port Erin Beach, where I showed Sam where I'll be getting married to the lovely Jen in August. But I think on the podcast we've gotten up to you, we're just going through, you'd had the detox and you were 2 weeks at your mum's before you went into Shardale. So,
that's it.
Yeah.
Shout out to your mum, by the way.
Always.
Got great cake and souvenir.
Yeah, you did. Got a keyring. Yeah,
and
Dottie's great.
Just with the tour that you've given me today, I'm considering coming over here and living.
I mean, this is just the power of the Isle of Man, guys.
Yes.
I came here for a month in like July 2020, and I was only going to come for a month. I was like, yeah, I'll come over. I'll appease my parents by, coming away from all the shit that I was in over there. Get a bit sober, and then I'll go back across, and I've not left, and that was nearly 5 years ago now. So
I might not leave.
This is it. Yeah, you're not going back tomorrow.
But the 2 weeks.
2 weeks, man.
Again, but like you asked me that, did I want to drink? Was there any temptation? It was again so weird that there wasn't. It's so focused on just getting through those 2 weeks and getting to the rehab, getting into treatment. And I was like, because I had liver damage and stuff like that, the yellow tinge was kind of fading to a degree, because they'd looked after me in hospital, and then at home at my mum's I was like reading up on all what's good for your liver, your kidneys, everything. So I was drinking gallons of green tea, which is very good for the liver. It's good for a lot of things, but I was drinking shitloads of it. And one little addiction I did after feed myself with, what I remember is scratch cards. I was buying a few of them.
Right, interesting.
Yeah, this was in the 2 week period. I wasn't buying drink. I was having a
getting on the scratches.
little fix on scratch cards, which at the time was a lot better than me having a drink. But I couldn't before that. I couldn't have done that 2 weeks. I hadn't had a period of sobriety like that for probably 15 years.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because
Because even when
every single weekend.
Yeah, I was going to say, even before like your father passed away, like when it was just a kind of social thing, it was every weekend. So even though you weren't drinking in the morning or through the week or whatever, you were still going out and doing that socialising thing at the end of each week. So yeah.
I didn't. I had more than a week, but this was again different. I was just so focused, And in the middle of that 2 weeks, I had to go to Shardale to visit. So I went. I don't know did we cover this actually?
Don't think so.
I went to.
Oh,
visit.
you to visit? You said you went to visit. Yeah, sorry, you did. Yeah.
And
They showed you around.
A lad called Paul. And what I thought, to be honest, when I saw him, I thought he'd been in for like 3 months. He was on a 9-month stint.
Wow.
You know, so it was like, looked at him and I was like, he's like got a bit of weight to him. You know what I mean? He loved me for saying that. A bit of weight to him, a bit podgy.
Yeah.
Yeah, Paul. And decent trainers, you know what I mean? I was like, this place, you know, it must be doing some good.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
He showed me round, and it was like, yeah, totally. You know, I'd already agreed to it, but it was just going through the formalities.
Mm-hmm.
And the lady at the time, I can't remember her name, that was like, I think she was doing a bit of paperwork. She said, if it was my choice, I'd just let you stay because it was a weekend, and I was due to go in on the Monday.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I visited on a Friday. She was like, I'd have you in, but again, the person that was signing off,
Mm-hmm.
I said then I was on holiday, so it was literally a signature that I needed.
Wow.
So I did the visit. She said, I'd have you in now, but we can't do it. So I had to go back home,
Mm-hmm.
on the train, and that. He's like, well, fucking hell, you know what I mean? So went back to my mum's, and then on the Monday, packed my bag, a Guinness bag of all things. Yeah.
Of course.
I remember it, a big freaking hold all.
Yeah.
It's all I owned, you know. Like,
Yeah.
I chucked. I didn't have many clothes at the time. I just chucked whatever I needed in the bag. I'd been prescribed loads of acamprosate as well, which the doctor gave me to help cravings and stuff.
Yeah.
So I had all that. I had my bag packed. Went there on the Monday. Arrived, you know, and it was like, you won't be needing them. So they just, no, you won't be having them. All the acamprosate. My phone and smartphones had just become a thing. Yeah.
Yeah, they take everything off you then.
Wow, it was everything, and I was like, wow, I can't have my phone.
Yeah.
It's just like shit, freaking out, really. But in all honesty, within like 2-3 days, you didn't miss it.
Yeah.
Didn't miss it at all. So I'd say, you know, I was in for 6 months. I'd been funded for 6 months,
Mm-hmm.
and at first, like, I had this newfound like focus, but I was still broken. You know what I mean?
Of course.
I was still frail, and for the first month, I won't really say boo to a goose, man. You know what I mean? Like to see me now, I was worlds apart.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, because you didn't have your crutch. We'll say it again.
Yeah.
How many people what's the capacity in there, and how many people were in there when you were at the beginning of your kind of stint?
I think the capacity there was like something like 30.
Right, so quite a
place.
few. Yeah, because Ocean's
place.
not.
That's I think the most there's 16. I think
16.
now.
Yeah.
Rooms,
But like in Ocean, when I was there, and I did like 28 days. You know, it's like the whole 28 days later thing. They don't take your mobiles off you. They don't take your laptops off you. It's just like pretty cushy.
Well, I've
in
said
there.
it to people in there. You want to see the place that I was in. You know, you'd get reprimanded for isolating.
Yeah.
Because isolating's bad. You know what I mean? But you if you're for longer than 15 minutes in your bedroom, you're getting pulled.
Yeah,
So
and also you have
you
to
know.
do the jobs, don't you? Because you're doing cleaning,
Oh man, I
you're
love
cooking.
that,
But it's like, but in Ocean,
No, you get
honestly,
everything done.
it's just
Yeah.
a bit of a holiday camp in a way, and yeah. And then when I come over here and people tell me about, because I know a lot of people that have been to Shardale from here, because that's like the next place over to go. There's no rehab facilities on the island, and yeah, that like they weren't. Like, to me, it was like, oh my God, sounds like a horror story. But they were more like, no, we needed this. This was, and I was like, man, that would have been good for me to be doing that kind of stuff.
And
But
you become part. It's a community.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you
yeah,
become
yeah.
part of it. You feel part of it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what with that, there's people from all walks of life going into a treatment centre like Shardale. So there's people with no basic skills, you know, that don't know how to cook.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
They've never
'cause-
been taught.
yeah.
They've never really cleaned up and stuff. So it's kind of catering for people on a massive scale.
and teaching them how to have life skills that they've
Yeah,
never learned
yeah.
as well.
But
And
I kind of embraced it, if I'm honest. That sort of thing. Yeah, and like again, I said before, you know, that I was still broken, still nervous, no confidence, and you know, I'd say for the first 4 weeks in there, you know, which is quite a long time when you're just getting used to your environment. You know, I was glad to be in a safe place, but I was still. What I tend to do as well, I still do it, although I'm a little bit more outgoing. I weigh up my situations, I weigh up everything, you know, and I take it all in and I analyse, blah de blah. But right, and you'll like this because right, a month down the line, getting into all the routine, you're in teams, you're cooking, you're cleaning, you're getting to know people, you're building friendships. And I had somebody that really took me under the wing. My roommate, basically, was called Colin, and he really supported me through them first few weeks. But I was attending everything, going to groups, you know what I mean? There's just all manner of stuff going on, but you're constantly like working. You know, you're in groups, you do journals every single evening to read them out in the morning. So it's getting people in touch with the feelings and expressing the feelings. You've got a journal group every single morning, and then you've got another group in the afternoon, and then you've got groups in the evening. So there's a lot going on. But Justin, Justin, right? Justin, we both know very well, and I hope he listens to this because he remembers it because I've reminded him. Right, he sat in the community room, so there's probably 25 people.
So just wait, Justin at this point is
working.
He's working. He's working.
He's a
So
worker,
yeah. And how sober clean is he at this point? Do you know? Because he's
at that
couple
time,
of
I
years
think it was
ahead
like
of you?
18 months, 2 years.
Yeah, so not much ahead of you.
No, not at all.
Right.
But he was class in there, you know what I mean? And he said certain things, and you know, he resonated a lot with certain things. It was great. But this one time, we were in the community meeting, so you sit round in this big room, the big living room. It was massive. 25 people there, and has anybody got any concerns? So you kind of challenge other people, you know, if you're seeing like behaviours and stuff, you challenge people. So Justin pipes up, I've got one. I was totally unaware, and he went, Sam. I was thinking, what the fuck is this? I'm still like just trying to keep myself to myself, doing you know, cracking on and going to the sessions,
doing everything that's asked,
that's asked. And he said, I see you, you know, I'm watching you, but you're very much trying to avoid and go under the radar. You'll get to your room, you'll do the 15 minutes, you'll come back down, you'll like, you know, you'll listen, but you're not saying much. He said, so that's my concern. You're going under the radar, and I'm a bit concerned about that because you won't get the most out of your treatment, you know. So like, try and engage a little bit more. And in my head, right, I'm fucking fuming.
Of course, you're
absolutely fuming, thinking, you prick. You just basically picked on me in front of all these people. That's what I'm thinking.
You're getting defensive. In
my head, so I'm like, right, okay. So, but you know, I took it, and then like I thought about it, and I'm like, right, I'll show you. Right? I'm just out of spite or out of whatever, you know what I mean? I'll show you. And I burst out my freaking shell, after he'd done that, and I've never returned. I've never gone back in. Honestly, man. So I was like,
those 4 weeks
I'm gonna get involved. I'm gonna put my hand up. I'm gonna fucking answer some questions. I'm getting involved. And I'm telling you, it was the best thing that could have ever happened.
You were like, I'm going to
know?
show him, but actually he showed you.
He did.
And he did that for you as a favour.
But I didn't get it when I was sat in that room embarrassed and like thinking he was like picking on me. But it was the best thing that happened to me in that
because he knew and he saw you and he thought, this guy's got more to him than what he's letting on.
And he brought it out, man.
And you know, for the listeners, Justin was one of the guys at Ocean Recovery that I went to, and I think I met him on my first or second day when I was still just absolutely rattling about, and Yeah, and obviously Sam was one of the workers there as well. So, and I've stayed in touch with Justin as well. To you and Justin, both absolute legends in my eye. You both helped me on my first little, journey into recovery. And obviously you ended up working with Justin.
Yeah, which
at,
was
at Ocean,
yeah,
or
like
first of all, yeah.
small world. You know what I mean? Yeah, no, because I was there before Justin arrived.
Right, at Ocean, yeah.
And I heard that he was going to be coming on board, and I'd seen him, and I'd not seen him since treatment.
Yeah,
And just big massive hug, and then it was great. It was great to work together.
Well, it's just interesting that when I came over here, Isle of Man, and started speaking to a few people, and they were like, "Oh yeah, I went to, Shardale and things like that," and I don't think I'd even heard of Shardale, because I don't know if you and Justin had even mentioned it, or if you had, it went over my head. But the fact that there's a few people over here that I know that know Justin, and it was kind of like, I was like, oh, this is like a little, because I know that the Isle of Man's still considered to be like the Northwest and all that, so it is in the same community, but just the fact that once you start delving into it, the whole recovery community is quite small, but people know people. And it's that kind of little community. So sorry, carry on. So you're like 4 weeks in at this point. Justin's brought you out of your shell. Burst out, you cracked out.
Literally, because it was like, right, this is life or death as well. It's like he's right. When I really thought about it, it's like I need to embrace it a little bit more, because I am kind of avoiding. I knew what I was doing. Out of my shell, and then all there's so many in-depth pieces of work that we did. Do you remember the goodbye letter? You did the goodbye letter?
Yeah.
Goodbye to alcohol
letter. And that's in my book.
That was my first piece of work there.
Yeah.
And then we did a life story, and then we did a 6 month prior. So it was continuous work in there. We got to see counsellors and stuff like that. So for me, it was the best thing I could have done ever. You know what I mean? And those 6 months gave me the time to kind of retrain my brain. With things and just reinforce the fact that there was hope.
And I think become the person that you hadn't yet become, because at this point you're what, 29?
Yeah.
And you're on the, let's be honest, you're on the verge of manhood, because I know 20-year-olds consider themselves to be men, and some are, but a lot of them are just like boys in men's bodies. And don't get me wrong, I didn't even really become a man until I was 40, until I got sober and when I started maturing. And I think with that, you've been drunk for so long through your 20s, and just like for 5, 6, 7 years since your father passed, it's like just been a pure constant, like not learning who you are, not developing any skills, and just
not maturing.
It's not maturing
at all.
Yeah,
we like you'll hear it a lot when people give up the drugs, give up drink, whatever. The kind of children, the babies.
Yeah. Because
we've not developed those skills, because you're stumping it with drink constantly.
Yeah.
You're not growing. You're not building resilience. You know what I mean? So like when at that time in the rehab, I was like 12, man.
Yeah,
really?
Yeah, because that's when you kind of started drinking.
I started dealing with shit with drink. So I wasn't actually like dealing with life situations properly.
Yeah.
So it was still like very young, so just relearning things.
And learning to do it, build confidence to do things sober. Yeah. That's a massive tool to learn, because you've been so used to using this crutch. And I know we keep using the word crutch, but it is a good, fits all, because you are using it as this helping hand to make you have the confidence to do things, and even just simple tasks in life, like going down to the shop and speaking to someone. I couldn't even do that with a drink.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But
so what?
Reading out your life story in front of 20 odd people.
Yeah.
Builds your confidence.
Yeah.
And you've not got anything in your system apart from maybe a bit of coffee. Yeah. You know what I mean? And you're allowed, you were allowed coffee there. I remember it.
Not in Ocean.
Yeah,
You guys all had
bit
the
before,
caffeinated.
it was over a decade ago. You know what I mean?
But I mean, I couldn't believe that we weren't even allowed.
Yeah.
Because it's all mind altering.
Changed a bit
coffee.
that though now. It's allowed again.
I'll bet. It was just when I was in, they weren't allowed full fat coffee. And I remember someone had gone to the shop and bought like a little jar of Nescafe, and I was just like, you've been told not to do that. Although I was buying scratchies in the shop and I shouldn't have been doing that. That was considered contraband.
So that was considered contraband, but you were looking down on the coffee buyers.
Yeah, I know. But I did have some of the coffee. But I remember, and I know we're going off on a tangent here, but I remember, and I'm not going to name names, but we were walking back to the centre, and it was like a good friend of mine, and pulled out this little vial of I think it's called liquid gold or whatever, amyl nitrate poppers. And I was just like, what are you doing to me? Like, why are you putting that in front of me? I'm like 3 weeks in at this point, you know what I mean? I'm feeling great, I'm doing that. And I'm not saying that would have led me back to booze, but it would have been putting me back in a place. I hadn't done poppers at this point for, let's say, 98, 99, when I had to launch it out the window because I was waking up in the morning and just doing poppers for breakfast because it was just there, and it was like just a hit, just something, because I was always craving this, like, get out my head. And it's like, for what, like 10 seconds of pure, like, bang, bang, my head's going like that, and then I'd collapse on the floor.
See a bit of yellow.
But I was like, no thanks, thank you very much, but no thanks. And I was like, I think you need to chuck that when you get back to the centre or whatever. Don't know if they did. I'm not going to specify the gender, but and it was, but there was things like that were going on. But sorry, we're getting off topic. So, what was it like for you when you were kind of thinking, I'm coming up to the end of my 6 months, and I'm kind of like going, right, I need to get out and go into the real world.
Bear in mind, we've been in treatment for 6 months, so you get somewhat institutionalised. Yeah, you know what I mean. And I didn't want to leave.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I literally didn't want to leave, and I remember one night close to when it was time to go, like probably a couple of weeks before, and I was just looking out to a bus stop, like, and just thinking, shit, man. There's a world out there, and I don't know how I'm going to handle it. And, we've done all this work. You're in a safe environment, a safe bubble, and it's like, fuck, I don't, not that the focus had gone, but it was like, how am I going to manage out there?
You've got to make your own choices, and you've got the freedom to do whatever you want.
Yeah, you've got your rules and your regulations, which in treatment, and it works, and you've got a community of people that you've basically bared your soul to. So. And you've got the freedom to talk about the shit that you never really wanted to talk about, and the world's different outside. It's not quite as safe as that environment, and there's always the temptation for a drink. Although by that time my head was kind of like, I was never one for saying I'm never going to drink again, but it was like, I'm going to do everything in my power not to, But I think we touched on it off recording, about halfway through the treatment, there was like 15 of us going, I tell you what we'll do, because we love the vibe, the environment. We'll get a building like this, and we'll all live together, and we'll create our own community. And by like, it was probably a month before we were leaving, there was 2 of us, and it was me and a lad called Paul, who showed me around. These connections. And we just looked at each other and went, are we still doing it?
Everyone else has gone.
So we did. We ended up actually living together for a couple of years. But I ended up going to supported living for like 6 weeks after I'd left treatment, which was something called Mulberry in Blackpool. And it was a great stepping stone to a flat that me and Paul had found. And it needed doing up in the interim. So I had my decorating skills, so I went and was going from supported living down to the flat, doing it up, so it's keeping myself busy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But the night, I'll just go back a little bit. The night I left,
Mm-hmm.
I went to the supported living, and I was just like, what the fuck?
Mm-hmm.
I could do what I wanted now. You know, if I wanted to, I could go out and get drugs, get drink, and I was like, the house, and this is it's no tarnish against Mulberry, but it was the first house that they'd ever had, and the floors were fucked. So like, I was sat in the bedroom, and I was a bit of ungrateful. I've been practicing gratitude for 6 months, but ungratefulness came in, and I was like, shit, it was like the floors were like as if you were pissed, you know, and stuff, and I was like, sat on my bed, I went, no, have a word, you know, you're safe, you know, there's another housemate downstairs who I didn't know at the time, great lad anyway, he's called Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
Still, he's doing well. And I was just like, no, I'm safe,
Mm-hmm.
I'm secure, I'm alive,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean, and Paul's coming tomorrow. So, yeah, it's going to be okay. You
But
know?
I had a similar thing when I moved in here into the cottage, and I was, I think, 9 or 10 months sober, maybe 9 months sober, and you know, and I was doing all right, and I was kind of like, you know, this is it, I'm good, I'm still going to the meetings, you know, I've got this time behind me. But I had this moment where I'd moved in, and I think my family were here and helping me, you know, just unpack boxes and move in and all that, and then I was just left that night, and I'd done most of the packing that I was going to do that day, unpacking, sorry, and I'd had some dinner, and I was just sitting, and I think I was, you know, putting something on the laptop or whatever, and I was just sat, and I was like, it was a beautiful evening, and I was like, I could just go down the shop and, you know, get a bottle of wine or get a couple of beers or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it was like, I was remembering that, like, play the tape forward that they use in Smart, and it was like, well, right, so what would happen? And it was like, and it wasn't like a serious thought, but I was still going to play it out in my head, and I thought, right, if I went down and bought a bottle of wine, and I come back up, and but that wouldn't be enough. I know that wouldn't be enough, so I then have to go down, but I can't drive. But then I would drive, and it's like, I'm already on the island, I'm making this new life for myself, and it's like, do I really want to be caught? Because, you know, yeah, there's not many coppers around here, but I would just be the unlucky one that would get caught, and then it's like, I'm losing everything. I'm losing this lovely little cottage, my job's going because I can't drive to my work, and it was just all these little things, and it was like, and then what would I get out of that bottle of wine to be sat up here? You know, my family would be like, you've just got this place, why are you going to ruin it?
Yeah.
You know, and it was like...
And it's like, nobody will know.
Nobody will know.
But you fucking will.
But I'll know, yeah. What am I going to do? Yeah, go and pick up my 9-month chip, you don't get one. But do you know what I mean? Get my 9 months, and people are going, yeah, you got 9 months. Be like, yeah, in my head, I'm like, no, I don't.
I haven't.
Well, not because I just did that one thing. Because if that one thing would have then become a daily occurrence, I would have just been back out there.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have been still here. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, anyway, sorry, carry on.
No,
so
it's fine. It's fine. These interactions,
interactions,
I
that's it. Because it's looking
for
the similarities, isn't it? And I'm just like, this is my life as well. Yeah.
But like from that, you know what I mean. And I have to say, like, how fortunate and grateful I am of some of the bonds that I created when I was in treatment. And thankfully, if it wasn't for, and I'm going to say a specific 3 people, and I'm going to name them.
Yeah.
So Paul, you've heard of Paul,
Yeah.
and a great friend called Sue,
Yeah.
and a young lad called Paddy. Yeah.
Right.
There was a couple of others. I don't need to name them, but they'll know who they are. But if it wasn't for those 3, yeah, because they were basically my support network.
Yeah.
If I didn't have them in them early days, because it is so freaking challenging, man, out there. You know, you're constantly on guard. You know, you don't. You know, sometimes you don't even want to walk down the booze aisle and stuff like that. You know, and it's been a long time. So I have to take myself back to those early days.
Yeah.
But honestly, if it wasn't for those 3 people who I could basically bare my soul to, you know, and tell them exactly how I was feeling, I wouldn't be here today.
Yeah.
And that is the truth. And sadly, one of those who's Paddy isn't. You know, he's in the ether somewhere, but he's
back out.
He had some trouble going on, and
right.
But the reason I say that is it's so important to build that support network.
Yeah.
And this is what I say, because I was lucky to find them those people that still did really well over time. That's why in like Ocean, you get told to go and connect. You need to be in and around recovery. You know, for the first couple of years, it's so testing out there.
Absolutely.
You need to be around it. You know, however you find that, it's generally meetings. You know, it is.
It is the meetings, but you know, as I said to you before we spoke off recording, there is this amazing like internet community now, mostly on Instagram, where people are finding
so
that
obviously
support.
back in the day, it wasn't really there. You know,
well, that's what I was going to say as well. So, what was your sober date?
I said the 11th to someone the other day, and it wasn't. It was September the 9th, because when I counted it from the day I walked out of the hospital. I had my last Librium on that day, so September the 9th, 2013.
Wow.
Shit, man, and me to say that's crazy.
Yeah.
So, because this September it'll be
12 years.
12.
So that is, you know, I don't think we mentioned like actually what longevity you've got on your sobriety. So this September 9th, it'll be 12 years.
Yeah.
Which is and it's like
sometimes I have to like step out of myself and go, how did that happen?
Yeah.
You know, because we have touched it off recording, but to have met me when I was 28, 27, 28, like nearing the time I went into rehab, my family didn't think I was going to make it, and they were the people that knew me inside and out. They didn't think I had a hope. They thought he's a fucking lost cause. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, you had you know that time when you were you know, going in and out of hospital with seizures and things like that, and they were like, yeah, this is not, you're in a bad way, but you kept on going back out and drinking, and then to have, you know, the cirrhotic start of your liver kind of damage, obviously that was where the kind of turning point was, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
And have you had like LFTs
done
well, like, since then?
Because it was bothering me while I was in treatment, I got checked out, and they don't tell you specifics, they just say your liver's functioning. So I was lucky, but I did get told once that it was kind of just before the third mark of your liver, because if you destroy more than a third of your liver, that's it. You're going over, basically, and that's when you get cirrhosis, and that's when. So I was just before. That's why if I would have carried on, I would have been buggered. Absolutely, you know what I mean. That's why the jaundice came in, and I think it was something to do with the pancreas as well.
And that's the thing. It is an amazing. It's one of the most amazing organs in the body, because it does take an absolute pounding every day with all the toxins that we put in normal life.
Our body, you know what I mean?
And it repairs itself, but it only takes so much, and that's what people don't really get. Like, to go off on a bit of a tangent, there's a lady called Hazel, who, you know, we're friends on Instagram. She did an amazing, she works for the BBC Scotland, and she's a reporter, and she did this amazing documentary on binge drinking. I think it's called Binge Drinking and Me, and you can find it on the iPlayer. I'll put the link in the show notes.
Cool.
And it's a great little documentary about her. So she was in her early 30s, young family, you know, husband, I think, you know, kids, and she would go out maybe once, twice a month with all her uni mates, and they'd have a bit of a blowout and binge drinking. She went along she was feeling lethargic and all that, went along to the doctors, and they said, well, we'll do a liver function test. Did it, and it came back as like, right, you need to stop drinking because your enzyme levels are through the roof, or depleted. I'm not sure whether it's high or low, but it's like, you really need to sort this out. And she, like, you know, she wasn't an alcoholic, she wasn't dependent on it, but she was caning it once or twice a month. And that's where people that are like, and the documentary was great because she was doing these little pop-up you know, like liver function tests in places in London and Glasgow and all that, and it was just an eye-opener for a lot of people. The fact that, you know, if you're as bad as you and I were, and, you know, you've come back and your liver's taken some beating, but it's okay. But the people that aren't drinking like massively, but they're binging it,
well,
they're still in. It's almost a worse danger because you're doing it. With us, it was a consistent thing. So the liver's just going like, I'm just getting this again, getting this constant like battering. But then it's like, oh, my liver's healthy, and then poof. Once a month, shock. Just a shock of all this booze. And people are not. They're like, oh no, I don't have a drinking problem. I just go out once a month and get absolutely shit faced. That's where the major problem of the players is at the moment. So,
And once one organ starts deteriorating, it's pretty quick when the others just start failing as well, and it's quite, I've seen it happen, what I mean, and like your liver goes, then your kidneys go, and your pancreas goes, and then you're in trouble. You're in trouble, and I've seen over the years. I've seen it a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I bet you have in what you
it's
do.
Not, it ain't pleasant.
Yeah,
it is not pleasant.
So, how was the kind of first year of out of Shardale recovery journey for you?
Testing.
Yeah.
Did you know what I mean? Yeah. Testing, but brilliant as well. You know what I mean? Because you come out of because I'll describe it as a rebirth, man. You're seeing things brand new. Yeah. You're experiencing everything's a first. I've never done this not pissed. I've never done that not pissed.
Birthdays, Christmas.
I've not been to a gig not pissed since I was 10 probably. First gig, which was wonderful, which I've written about somewhere, but I don't need to go into that because that's probably be another hour.
We'll link it.
Yeah. But like concerts, you know what I mean? I thought when I was in treatment, I thought I would not be able to experience music how I did like when I was drinking, because I had this passion for it. I'd fall asleep next to my record player and I thought I was cool, you know what I mean? But I thought the love would die of it, but it didn't. And Justin again, you're getting a lot of mentions here, dude. But
maybe it'll make him come on the podcast.
It might do. Justin, come on, lad.
I want to tell my side of the story.
But he kind of said, you will. He said, honestly, you'll be okay. You'll be able to go to concerts again. He said, I won't encourage doing it all straight away because you need to ease yourself into
you don't want to overwhelm yourself in your head. Yeah.
And it took me, I think, 9 months, so the 6 months in treatment, then 9 months out of treatment to go to my first gig. But within that, I took a sober person, so you could bounce off each other. So if there was any worries or your head fell off or whatever with it, you could tell that person. Yeah.
Or say like, listen, I've had enough. I'm time to ditch out here. But if you're with someone that's drinking, they'll be like, what are you talking about? We'll stay. So another half hour.
Yeah. So there was a couple of people there that were drinking, but there was also a sober person.
Yeah, your wingman.
Yeah. So that. It lessens that panic and worry around those situations. And do you know what? It was the freaking one of the best gigs ever.
Who was it?
It was Garbage, actually.
Oh,
Shirley
nice.
Manson's Scottish band. And that was actually the
Butch Vig,
Butch Vig, But this was the gig from being 10 years old. The first live gig I'd ever been to was Garbage, when I was 10. Was it 11? 10 or 11, I don't know exactly.
Yeah.
But then the first
sober
live gig was Garbage.
Right, wow.
So it was like,
bookended,
shit, man. And it was just like, fucking amazing. Felt it completely, man. I was in the moment. And even now, it's being out on a fucking mountain, sex, or being at a concert, I'm learning more ways of being in the moment with meditation and breath work, but they're the main three where I am completely in the moment with things. Where there's no busy bullshit going on in your head and you're just there. You're there and you're enjoying it and you're being. And it's just wow. Yeah, but it took me 8 months, eight or 9 months though to
like even out of the
And I think it was a good while as well before I even went into a establishment for it was like an eatery, but they sold booze. You know what I mean? But it took a while, and again, I went with a sober person.
Yeah.
Just for that extra support,
And just to touch on that quickly, like I assume you have been in a pub since getting sober. Obviously, it's nearly 12 years, but like, do you have any inkling to kind of go into pubs, or is it only like a kind of thing where if there's a band playing or a comedian, or do you know what I mean, someone's birthday party, like it's not like a kind of hangout place for you, obviously?
There's just no point.
There's no point.
What do you go to a pub for? If you're a drinker, what do you go to a pub for?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so if there's a reason, you know, somebody's invited you out for a meal, or it's
that's
birthday,
like
but no,
yeah.
for me personally, there's absolutely no reason to go and stand in a pub or sit in a pub.
No,
it's pointless.
Well, you can't hear people and you can't really have
and then when you're sober and then people get to that level of like point of no return, it's not really enjoyable. And you know, it's not a dig at them. It's like, it's cool, you know. There's never any judgment from me. I was a raging alcoholic, you know, but it's just not my vibe anymore. I don't need to be in and around that. You know? And I kind of want to leave when people get to that level.
Well,
that's just cool.
And that's fine. You can. There's no one's going to miss you. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying you're not like, you know, popular person within your friend group, but it's like, honestly, they're more interested in what they're putting in their hand and in their belly. So it's like they're not really going to miss you when you're gone, when you've left the pub. And so what were you kind of thinking, kind of work wise and getting back into, you know, normal society and living and things like that?
Well, I volunteered. I pretty much, as soon as left treatment, to keep me kind of reminded and in that world to a degree. I was volunteering at Inspire.
Right.
So that was the alcohol and drug service I mentioned several times. But just a day a week.
Yeah.
But just going in and doing whatever they wanted, basically, whatever they asked, like answering the phones. But again, you're around it. You're in and around it. And you're watching people come in who are needing help, you know, and it's like, that reinforces the fact that you're not wanting to go back. You know, I don't want to go back to that shit, you know. I've worked hard to get here.
Yeah.
And so I was volunteering. I don't know how long I did that for, you know, again, you know, decades past. It's like mad thinking back to it. But, so I did that for probably about a year, maybe a little bit less. And started, and then you want to be a kind of upstanding member of society, you know.
You want to get back and help out. And did you do any? Were you going to meetings or anything like that? Because I know that you
early
Shardale, what you didn't want to go to one that was like AA based and fellowship based and all that. But were you doing anything else?
And that was my lack of education around it. You know what I mean? But I did SMART in the early days, you know. And there was meetings going on at Mulberry as well, the supported living. That I stayed at for a while. And then after that, but again, I say I was in and around recovery. I had those. So
it was always
around, always a reminder, and I had them connections to recovery. You know. And so it's like that worked for me. You know, I'm not saying that way I work for whoever else, but it worked for me. But I had to be in and around it and reminded of it.
And I think it helps with the complacency to be in and around it, because if you've got sober and you do 3 months going to meetings or whatever, and then you're like, yeah, cool, you've got your pink cloud and your 3 months where the magic starts to happen, your body's feeling better, your skin's feeling better, looking better, and you're like, right, yeah, that's me sorted. And then if you don't keep yourself in that kind of world in any way, shape or form, that's when complacency sets in.
And you think, I'm alright, but slowly but surely your head and your behaviours, you know, they're not totally gone, they start creeping back in. So you know, if you're not in and around it and being reminded, it's very easy for those thought patterns to
behaviours
start taking over your head, and before you know it, and I've seen it, you're picking up a drink and you don't know how the fuck you've done it.
You don't even remember when that, because what is it they say, and I'll attest to this, that the relapse can happen way before you pick up that drink, like weeks, months before you pick up that drink. You've just got, it's in your head and it's just festering itself in there.
You've set the ball,
and then you're out there, and I guess it's almost like an out of body experience. You know it's going to happen and you're not really fighting it, because you're like, well, this is inevitable now. It's been in the makeup for 3 weeks now, and then you're just drinking, and you're done. Yeah.
And until you like seriously dissect it, you're not sure how it happened.
Yeah. You're like, what am I doing here with this drink? My relapses were very quick, though. To be fair, they were like, right, I'm fucking going down the shop. And
but you said though, Andy, you've kind of said at times that I knew I was going to drink again.
Yeah. The times that I gave up before, like even like, and I guess when I was in Ocean, it wasn't in the back of my head. It was like I had too much else going on with it, being in there and just going, this is a whole new experience to me. And it was like my brain was just being opened up to all these different things. Yeah, I'd been to an AA meeting before, and I'd touched on that. And I know Ocean's not really delved in that, but there was talk of it, and there was talks of Smart and all that. So I was just like sponging it all up. So I don't think in my head that I was thinking, well, I'm going to drink again at some point. I think at that point I was really focused on staying sober and being sober. But then I had that awful experience when I came out, and it was like straight away. First thing I did was go and do it because there was no one to stop me.
You've not built them defences up. You've not had time to build those defences up. 28 days is a short period of time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Although
I got to 55 that time, but then it was like straight away. But then after that, the subsequent constant relapses were very quick and very just like, and then it was like, right, I'm going to get sober. But in the back of my head, it was like, I'm probably going to have a drink again at some point in my life. It would have been in a few days or a week again.
You've
but
not fully let go.
No, but then the last time, on the 19th of August, it was like, if I don't do this now, it's, what is it they say, jails, institutions, and then death. And I'd done the institutions, I'd been in jail, albeit for a day, but it was still enough.
In jail,
it was still in jail, and I didn't fancy the latter one. Do you know what I mean? And I thought, right, I need to do this. And then, as the days turned into, the hours turned into days, and the days turned into weeks, and then the weeks months, it was like, this is all right. This life, I quite enjoy it.
I'm quite enjoying myself.
Quite enjoying it. Yeah. So, like, what was like the rebuilding of relationships with family, friends, people that had maybe doubted you and were like going, well, he's going to relapse again, or he's not going to make it. How was that?
I don't know if I had much of that, if
No,
I'm honest, because I did kind of seclude myself towards the end. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I have to admit, like, my brother was getting frustrated with me, but they were always there. And as soon as I went into treatment, they were fully supportive. And it was years later. I had a conversation with my mum, and this was. It'll make me emotional now, but like, I can't remember how many years in. I spoke to her, and there was a lot of volatility between me and my mum when I was drinking. And when I got sober, that basically disappeared. So it kind of came from me.
And as you said, she was drinking as well.
I was holding on to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
A good few years in, we had quite a deep conversation, and she still carried a lot of guilt, for leaving, and she was honest to me about it. I said, like, please try and let go of that now, because we've let go of it, and my brother has as well, my brother Joe. And we had this deep discussion, and she said, "You know what, Sam?" She said, "I was fucking always worried about you, always." And she said, "You know what? Now, I don't worry about you at all."
Yeah. She's getting sleep at night,
and she's just like, that is the best gift I could have ever given to her. She says, like, as a mother, you worry about your children. She has her normal worries, but she's like, "I don't worry about you at all." And I was like, wow, that is so powerful, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Morning, guys. It's now Sunday. We've had an amazing sleep, and we went out for dinner last night to an amazing little pizza joint called Byron's down in Port Erin Bay. Jen came out and joined us. I think we were all just a bit shattered. We'd all had hectic days, and Sam and I, like off recording, I've just been talking deep conversations like the whole weekend. It's just been amazing. So, I'm glad that we're getting a lot of it on the record. But it's just been an amazing weekend. We've done our cacao ritual this morning. So we've done that. We've had bagels, and yeah, we're just going to kind of take up where we left off. So Sam, you were just you were in recovery. I think quite a bit into recovery. Thankful and blessed that your mum wasn't, like worrying about your drinking anymore. So, yeah, where did kind of recovery take you?
Yeah,
I
think we got to it was like I know skipping, and it's not quite linear, is it? We're going back and forth.
Yeah, but that's cool.
But yes, I know you're a convert now, aren't you? Cacao.
Oh,
everybody try it.
Absolutely.
That's my advice. It's not all been easy. I need to labour that fact.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you don't just put the drink down and then boom, yeah, you sorted. You know what I mean? So there's been some incredibly testing times, especially when the bubble burst of coming out of treatment. You've probably experienced it yourself. When you at first in recovery, you're like everything's brand new, and then reality hits. And you're like shit. And all these emotions come to the surface and stuff, and it can be testing. And you still got them. You've still got them thoughts of, yeah, what could I do to deal with this?
Yeah.
And you still got it's still there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, what do you do with that? You either pick up or you ask for help. You talk, and I don't think I've mentioned yesterday, but talking for me, because I didn't really talk about my feelings, I kept everything inside, was like the biggest tool I learned. You know what I mean? Because we can talk bullshit, we can talk rubbish all day long.
Like you said, it's just surface conversation, banter, chit chat.
But it's about that stuff that's in your mind that's bothering you, that you don't want to talk about, that you need to be sharing with people. And it's generally like-minded people, you know what I mean? People in recovery that get it.
Yeah. That's for me why, going to the meetings for like NA or SMART, I like during lockdowns and that, I was finding online groups and stuff. So I was and I think definitely with my kind of core home group with NA, I'd probably be guilty of oversharing at the beginning. Like I was just pouring my heart out, and then I did learn to kind of just more talk about the kind of stuff that would help other people. But at the beginning, I was just a free for all. Like I didn't speak in my first couple of meetings, sitting in the corner rattling away, and then you couldn't shut me up. It was just like everything and anything, talking about past relationships, and I'm sure I was boring the shit out of them. But I didn't care, because it was great for me to just offload all this stuff. And I knew it was staying in that room. No one was going to be going, oh yeah, did you hear what Jimmy said, and blah blah. It was just all in that room, and it was all just pure love and support.
It's quite funny that you say that, because I remember my older brother Damien, I've mentioned previously. 6 months treatment, bear in mind I've been in treatment, so I come out, we went for a walk, and it's only recently, or a few years ago should have said it, that I'd spoke to him about it, and I said, because I was coming out, been in treatment, talking all this stuff, I was telling people at the bus stop that I was fucking sober. Because
you want them to you want this a pink cloud, and you want them to feel what you're feeling.
You can have this. You can have this if you want it. You know what I mean? And they're like, people looking at you like, shit. It's like, who's this guy?
Yeah.
But like my brother, I said, was I talking treatment? when I come out, he's like, yeah, totally. He said, I didn't want to like
burst your bubble up or stop your flow.
He said like, now I can say it. Yeah, you were just like, it's like as if you come out like being a counsellor and shit. But after a while that eases off. You know what I mean?
Because you find other things in your life, but at that point it's just it's all encompassing, and that's great. That's what you need it to be.
You've been in a treatment centre for 6 months, and it's like 24/7.
It's your life,
But the connection, I'll stress it and I'll keep stressing it, is with like-minded people is essential. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's absolutely massive.
Yeah, and I think for me, like what you were saying there about like how to deal with things and thoughts and all that, and for me definitely early days, I I guess you can call it complacency or whatever. And I think going to the meetings really hammered it home to me to make me think that what I'm about to say wasn't true. But I would go through phases of thinking, I'm all right now, you know? And it was like, I just had to go to a meeting and remember that, like, yeah, I'm not fixed. I wasn't fixed. You know, I'm not saying I'm fixed now, because I know that if I was to have a drink today or tomorrow, it wouldn't be long before I was back where I was, because that's still there. And all I need to do is just not do that, and that's fine. But back then it was like, yeah, do you know what? Like, maybe I'll have a beer. And it was only fleeting. It wasn't like it was like, I need to really focus on this. But I would have the thoughts, and it's very easy to just go, yeah, do you know what? Before you know it, you're in a pub or you're in a park with a bottle in a brown paper bag.
And if you're not letting that out, you know what I mean? It builds on itself. So it's one day it's like, oh yeah, I could have one. Nobody will know. Again, as we discussed, but you'll know. No one will know, and then you don't let that out, you don't share that. The next day it's like, oh yeah, no one will know, and it's like it builds on itself. The power of it builds on itself. If you release that out, it enters. It's like, I think somebody told me once, it's like draining a battery. Battery's energy, you know what I mean? Keep depleting it, and the way you keep depleting it is by fucking getting it out of your head. If you don't, it builds on itself, and then you bang,
because even if you've got a depleted battery and you keep trying to charge it, it won't go back to like 100%. It'll go to like 80%.
To like intense, I need a drink. I'm picking up, and it is. It's
and you're right. If you don't tell people, like I was telling people in my meetings, I'm going, like, any thoughts of drinking, and I was like, you know, I've had thoughts, and they've been fleeting, but they've gone out of my head. And they're like, you know, well done, you've not acted upon that.
Which brings in honesty. You fucking have to be honest about it. People feel ashamed about it. Oh, I'm in recovery, I shouldn't be thinking these thoughts. It's that bullshit narrative in your head. Why shouldn't you be thinking these thoughts? This has been part of your life.
It's what's defined you for like 15 years.
So it doesn't just go away. But you have to keep sharing and talking and working through it. And sometimes fucking, you know, white knuckling it. You know, not to a massive degree, because then you're not well. You're doing it for a long period of time. Healing. But sometimes you have to fucking hunker down and go, I'm gonna get through this. You know, because the alternative is on the bench with a brown paper bag, you know.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? It's like,
and like fucking... how, so like you know, if you're saying you know, no one will know, I'll have a drink tonight, but no one will know, and then I'll get back on the straight and narrow, it'll just be for tonight. But like, how often in drinking did you tell people that you weren't going to drink, and then you'd go and do it anyway, and then they'd find out that you'd be drinking? Because like drinking to excess is not something you can hide, because if someone's in front of you, they're going to see you're pissed.
Yeah, well,
you know, or they smell it off
sometimes you'd think you're having people over.
Pulling the wool over.
Everybody knew.
Everybody knows. Like,
right, have you been drinking? No. Your fucking eyes are glazed. You're fucking slurring, and it's like, no, I've not had any today.
I was convinced there was. So I used to hide my. So when I was in Hull with my ex, and we'd be having wine. She wouldn't drink a lot, but it was like, she's drinking. And we'd have a bottle of wine or something, and that would obviously mask the smell. But I would have like a little bottle of vodka in the bathroom behind the stem of the sink, or in the cistern or whatever. And I was convinced one time I went in, and I was obviously like delirious, or just my head was completely fucked. And I was like, I'd gone into the bathroom for a little swig, and I'd taken a little swig, and then I'd come back in later, and I thought, I've only got 3 fingers of that left. And then I went back in later to have another swig, and I was like, why's that gone up? Do you know, like, and I thought, has she gone in and filled it up with water? And I was just, and I was like, does she know that this is in there? And it was just this whole confusion of like, why would she be topping it up? And it clearly, like, she didn't know it was there. I didn't think she knew I was hiding it in there till after, but because it was quite crafty. But she knew I was drinking, she just didn't know where it was. But I was convinced that it had gone up. It hadn't gone up. I'd just not remembered how much I drank the time before. But I was just getting this paranoia and kind of confusion because the lies were just becoming too much.
It's just all consuming, isn't it? You know, it just takes over your thought process. The energy that you put into your drinking is crazy.
Yeah.
And I think we said it, you know, if you put half of your energy into your recovery that you put into your drinking or drug using, whatever, you know, you fucking cracked it.
You cracked it a long time ago, yeah, without a doubt.
Not to get to complacency, but yeah.
No, not at all. It's so let's talk about some like, obviously we've got kind of 10 years of you know, recovery. Well, nearly 12 years of recovery. So
you know, I could talk about a shitload of external stuff, you know, which there's been a lot of, you know what I mean? In the early days, man, like I was fucking grateful for it. I still am. I still tap into it.
Yeah.
But it's not as, I'd be lying if I say it's as powerful, but it's still there. It's like I was fucking grateful for every single day, because it was like if I wasn't in that hospital, you know, or got help in the hospital, I won't be here, you know what I mean? So every single fucking day for me was a blessing and is a blessing. So it's like, not that I'm living on borrowed time, but the past fucking 12 years, nearly 12 years, has been a complete gift, man. In a parallel universe somewhere, I'm not here.
You're not here.
So I fucking have to make the most of it, you know what I mean? And like I said, it's not all been fucking plain sailing. Yeah. You know, like within this, I've experienced some of life's most challenging things, or what you perceive as most challenging things, you know. The death of my mother that we can go into a little bit, you know, but a breakup of relationships, you know, a lot of stuff, loss of not careers, but jobs and that, you know, financial insecurity, all that stuff that fucking worries you. But we touched on it earlier as we were preparing the cacao, you know what I mean? I'll say that again. Cacao. That but throughout recovery and doing right by me every single day, it's always worked out. It's always, things have always worked out, you know what I mean? And I break it down and I think, right, I'm worrying about this, but since I got sober, everything's been okay. I've faced challenges, but I'm still here. Do you know what I mean? And without a doubt. I think a massive part of the whole journey is, right, I've experienced love, massively, and felt it like fucking true.
Like unfiltered, because you're not in that haze of drunkenness or whatever you might have thought was love in the past. But I'm not talking about family and stuff, but you know what I mean, like relationship wise, it's possibly not what you're feeling when you're in sobriety and you're feeling genuine love. Because you're not in that haze.
And I think that can only stem from compassion to yourself and starting to love yourself. Otherwise you can't fully experience that, you know. And that shit, man, is priceless. That's beautiful. You know, I've never like the early relationship. You know, that it was loving. It was love, but in sobriety, it's fucking true. You know.
And I guess, like, you know, I'm not a religious person, but I would say I've always been spiritual, so it's not a thing that I've learned from fellowship or anything like that. But what you're talking about is, in my experience, it's like spiritual healing. Do you know what I mean? You have let yourself go to something that's greater than you. And I don't want people to think I'm all hippy dippy and all that, but there is this power in the kind of well, exactly, you know. And that's the thing. People will probably be listening, going, "Oh, what the shit's he talking about?" But
and he's talking about love.
He's talking about love and spiritual healing. It's like, oh, that's a load of bullshit. No, it's not. It's real and it's true, and it's like this power that you're like, you can't really put your finger on it or explain it, but unless you've been through such dark times, like I remember Justin said to me in Ocean, he said something that I can't remember his exact words, but he was like, it's almost like we've got superpowers. He said, because he said him as Justin has shook hands with the devil himself and survived it, and I just thought, wow, that's powerful. Because it is what we're doing. We're messing with the kind of dark stuff, you know. We're messing with the devil's juice and all that. And it's like, if you can come through that, then you can do anything, you know. And it is that rebuilding of your life and your love and all that. And it's spiritual healing, man. Yeah.
And to you talking about the darkness there, to visit such depths and darkness, you can then be catapulted into the light.
Yeah.
And then shit, man, like how much beauty have you experienced in your journey? You know what I mean? And felt it.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes it does have to come from visiting that dark.
Yeah.
You know, and the depths of your soul and scraping that barrel, man, and getting all that shit out. You have to kind of do some work.
Do some work.
Know? And we all, you know, and this not just addiction, you know, humans in general. There's darkness. There's darkness that a lot of people have faced, and we kind of have to fucking deal with that head on to be able to move forward at all. You know what I mean? Otherwise we get stuck.
We plateau, and I remember in the early days, like I had the pink cloud, and that lasted for a long time. I mean, I still think I'm in the pink cloud.
Well, you have,
because my life is so much better.
Yeah, it's maybe not as like prevalent as in fucking 24/7, but you have them beautiful moments on a daily basis.
On a daily basis, I wake up and I'm not hungover, I'm not hanging, and I'm not thinking, what the hell did I do last night? Or on the not just, and that was me at the end. It wasn't just like, what did I do last night? Who did I upset? But it was also like, how am I going to get alcohol today? You know, because I was on my arse and I didn't have money, so it was borrowing money off people. I also found this really, and I don't want to give people tips and tricks, but I had 2 PayPal accounts, and I realised quite early on, like in the end days of my alcoholism, when I had no money and jobs and that, and people were sick of lending me money, like my parents, my brother and all that. They were like, no, because, you know, they weren't always getting it back. I tried to give them it back when I get my universal credit or whatever, but I found this little loophole on PayPal. Now, it's not a great loophole, but it would sort you out in the moment. You could send money to yourself, and it wasn't an instant off your card, it was off your bank account. So it would take 3 or 4 days for them to take it from your account, and you'd have money in your and it was like, this was like I'd won the lottery. I was like, I'll just put like 20 quid over it, and it would allow me. It would still try and take it out of my account like 4 days later, and there would be no money in it to come out. So it was horrible, because I would just be making a bigger hole for myself. But for those little moments when I could get money,
instant gratification,
I needed it there and then I could go to the shop with $20, and it was like, right, I can get myself some Smirnoff rather than Glen's vodka.
Yeah,
you know, and I know we're laughing now because it was dark times, and I'm glad I can laugh about it now. But I'm not laughing by making light of people that are out there and they're doing that, and that's where I'm trying to kind of get people to go, right, you need to come into the light now, because look at Sam, look at me, look at all the others that have managed to do this, and if you think you can't do it, just take a look at you, take a look at me. You know,
that's one thing that, you know, like when I worked, you know, I've taken a bit of a hiatus at the minute out of the recovery realm. I'm always in it, do you know what I mean? But from working in it, but that's one thing I've always said to people, and just people that need a little bit of help, is, fuck me, you know, to have seen me, if I can do it, I believe anybody can do it. It's simple as that. That's one thing with people that walk through the Ocean's doors, is like, I had hope for nearly everyone. You know what I mean? Well, no, basically everyone.
Yeah, because you were such a bad case.
So it's like, if I can come from where I came from, anybody can.
Absolutely.
It's simple as that.
If there's someone that's starting on their, you know, and this is a slippery slope, if you're having maybe a bottle of wine every other night through the week and all that, because you've had a bad day, shitty day, good day, whatever, and then you're starting to go, well, I'll have one glass out the second bottle. You know, one bottle a night is bad enough, but if you're starting to open that second bottle on a nightly basis, then it's like, soon you're going to be on 2 bottles, and then before you know it, it'll be 3, and that's, and if you're, you know, you're not drinking in the morning and you're like, I'm still getting up and I'm going to work, doesn't matter. If you think there's a problem with alcohol or drugs, then there's a problem with alcohol or drugs. You know, if you're already contemplating that in your head, then definitely there is an issue there. Yeah. So, we've spoken about the dark times. What would be your most positive point in your recovery? What would you say?
Wow.
Yeah. Because we've spoken quite a bit about the dark times. And all that. Like your biggest kind of achievement within your 12 years.
Like I say, it's not really the external stuff. It's the internal peace that I've achieved, man.
Yeah.
because and then all the external stuff comes.
Yeah.
So it is literally inner peace and love for myself. That's my biggest achievement.
Yeah.
All the external stuff's bullshit.
Yeah.
No, but it is, isn't it?
Because it changes all the time, doesn't it?
But it is, and don't get me wrong, I don't just sit here and go, oh yeah, I love myself, blah blah. I have to fucking work every single day.
Yeah.
I still have to work on myself every day, you know. And recently, I've brought in a lot of meditation, breath work, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I'm still practicing being in the moment because our heads still go off. We've got our minds, but it's us trying to take control, like keep our mind and thoughts at bay. You know what I mean? Because no matter what, they get busy. Yeah. They get busy. So it's the more you can practice being in the moment and in flow, you know, the more you're going to enjoy life. You know what
Absolutely. I mean? And I totally agree with that. And I think so. I think we spoke about this yesterday. I might have mentioned it on a previous podcast that someone in my early days of recovery said, you know, I love what you're doing with your Instagram and all that, and you're helping people and you're helping yourself, but they said make sure you don't let your recovery define you. And I was a bit like taken aback, and I was like, oh, okay, like, and I was kind of like, why? And I kind of just took it on the chin and went, yeah, you know, whatever. But then I was like, the more I'm not saying like recovery is my entire life, it's not, but I think what you're saying there, I have to keep reminding myself on a daily basis that I don't want to go back there. And I think and I do the kind of daily reprieve on Instagram or whatever, and it's for me, it's the selfish thing. I'm doing it for me, for my recovery, and if it helps other people, then so be it. But it's like, you know, I have to kind of remember that I am still in recovery.
Yeah, and you know, do the work on you, and that ripple effect is massive all around you. You know what I mean? And just, I know I kind of said the external stuff's bullshit, but it's just going back to the internal stuff.
Yeah.
But over the nearly 12 years, whatever, and the work that I've done in recovery and stuff like that, hopefully, I've fucking planted a lot of seeds in people. Just for me doing what I'm doing, and it's just living it. Is an inspiration, right? So that ripple effect, hopefully, has helped God knows how many people. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That again is beautiful. You know, that's amazing.
And I think that is just, you know, if you're, you know, getting yourself sorted from within, then you can deal with any kind of anguish that comes along externally. So what would you, and I know we've spoken about this off air, if you went back to your, what was it, like 10, 11, 12-year-old self and said, right, young Samuel, you've got two paths here. You can go down this path with all the shit and debauchery and pain and anguish and despair and hopelessness that your life, and then obviously the hope and everything that come afterwards. You can go that path, or you can go this path and say to yourself, Sam, don't drink, don't take drugs, see what happens that way. Which path on that fork are you taking?
I'd still just go fully into the one that I did take, you know what I mean, because it's turned me into the person I've become. You know, so I wouldn't experience the joy and the love and the beauty that I experience now, because of visiting the dark, I can appreciate the light so much. I know we're talking dark and light a lot, but you know, just those moments of fucking beauty that you experience and you feel it in full force, man. I wouldn't experience that stuff. Fucking true love, decent relationships around me, fucking loving life. You know,
having that learned experience and just you know, like I think, as you say, you know, you have to go through the dark to get to the light sometimes. And I know I asked all my guests this question about going back, and I think pretty much 100% everyone's saying no, I would still choose the same path. And I'm not saying if there's a fucking 14-year-old listening to this to go and do the path, to choose the path that we have. Just saying that, like, we don't want to go back and change it because we've not, and it's more about a non-regret thing. You know, we're not saying we have regrets. Like I'm glad that I got sober when I did at 40, you know, rather than 50 or 60. But like, if I got sober at 30, I would probably have had a great life, do you know what I mean? But I wouldn't be the person I am sitting here in front of you today.
No.
You know, who knows where I'd be.
Well, we wouldn't have had this.
We wouldn't have, because I wouldn't have met you in Ocean.
No,
exactly.
It's crazy.
And again, it's the sliding doors. Like, I
Yeah.
watched that film recently with Jen, and it's an amazing little kind of 90s, rom-com, but the kind of thoughts that it comes...
I've watched it.
Yeah, the thoughts that it brings up, that those little moments in life that you make that choice, it defines everything, you know? So, Sam, do you think that alcohol still has a place in our society?
It's not a difficult question, but as a species, we've always wanted to change the way we our minds are, alter our minds. But I think there's a lot healthier ways of doing that than alcohol. I think Sorry, what was the question?
Does alcohol still have a place in society?
Have a place.
Yeah.
The place, I think, is it literally highlights the societal problems that need addressing, because why are so many people turning to alcohol? You know, to numb out the day-to-day stuff. I think that's what it serves, to highlight the problem of society, you know, and that is a massive thing that's going to have to be dealt with. You know? But
I think the government, and I don't want to get into kind of conspiratorial theory or whatever, but I do think that the governments of the world, especially, UK government, are quite happy for us to just drink ourselves into an early grave, because a drinker is not questioning anything about society. It's not questioning anything about, how hard and how shit a deal the people of the countries are getting from their governments. Do you know what I mean? And I know I'm sounding very political here, and I'm not meaning to, but I think if your government is saying, let them just drink themselves into stupor because it's keeping them happy on a Friday and Saturday night. Okay, they're miserable on a Sunday, but they're happy doing that. And I think if you got people that were more sober than not, people are going to start questioning things. They're going to start going, what am I actually doing? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're not going to have all the problems on a Friday and Saturday night with the police and the ambulances and all that stuff. People fighting, people being miserable. And I think the government does have a due diligence to start sorting it out. I'm not saying make alcohol illegal, because I know we can't do that, but I think they have a definite responsibility to make us all aware of how damaging it is, like they've done with cigarettes. And that's all I'm saying. Make people aware of how bad it is.
Education, at least educate people.
Because I had no idea. I didn't know it was linked to 7 different cancers. All the rest of it. I mean, what is it called? That's I always want to say Schwarzkopf, but it's not. It's Korsakoff, isn't it?
Wet brain.
Wet brain. Yeah.
That's...
Which, for people that don't know, and that is probably one of the final things that doesn't obviously happen to everyone, but like if you've drank long enough and hard enough and it hasn't killed you with like liver cirrhosis or anything like that, you're probably in a care home for people with that, and all they can do, the only treatment they can do is still keep feeding you alcohol, and that's it.
It's basically attaching, it's brain damage, and
it's a kind of dementia, and
system,
and
it's not a pleasant thing to witness. It's horrendous.
No,
but that's where it can lead.
That's where it can lead.
They're not advertising that.
No,
that's
I mean, look it up. I'll put links in the show notes as well. But it's and it's not just that. It's the 7 types of cancers. It's the liver damage. It's but it's not pancreatitis and just all the smaller scale things like the bad skin, the just feeling lethargic all the time. Like why are people still doing that to themselves?
Just numbing themselves.
Just
numbing,
They're
not being the best selves by
not the best version of
themselves down. You know what I mean?
And that brings me on to a question that. Would you say you regret getting sober and clean?
Oh yeah, it was the worst thing I've ever done. No.
I know it's a loaded question.
I had to be silly then, but no, man, no.
Because I've never met anyone that has. I've never met anyone that's struggled with alcohol And I have to stress that struggled with alcohol, got themselves sober, and said, "No, this isn't for me."
This. But that is hopefully like for anybody listening that is in a bit of a struggle. Like take that anybody that has actually done the work and got sober and are continuing that journey. I've got no regrets about it. Yeah. That's kind of a sign to show that it works. It works.
Yeah. And it's not just about having a regret of getting sober. It's more like how much better. It's not just a little bit better, with my experience anyway, and I'm sure yours. It's not just a little bit better life in sobriety. It is 1,000 times better.
Tenfold,
so much better.
Tenfold from like, and me personally, I didn't think I'd live past 27. So when I got past that, I was a bit lost, as we've talked about.
Yeah.
So I didn't, and then 40, man, I'm 40 now. It's like, I didn't think I'd ever, not in a million years, get to 40. But now I'm at this age, and I want to live as long as I possibly can in this realm.
Yeah.
Because I'm enjoying it, and I'm experiencing life fully.
And you're not poisoning yourself anymore, so there's every chance of that. You know, that's the thing. It's like this slow, very slow form of suicide.
Guilty vapor.
Well, yeah, but you know the jury's still out on that one. And I'm sure you're not going to do that forever. Do you know what I mean?
Overall, I am so much healthier. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So much, and I actually.
But healthier and happier, because I think mental health can have a slow decay of a person's health and well-being. Obviously, do you know what I mean? It's like you're not going out, you're not walking because you're constantly battling these demons and that. And I think by giving up the alcohol, it just opens up. I'm not saying it solves all mental health problems, of course it doesn't, but it gives you a better outlook and a happier kind of sense of who you are.
Yeah, and I think the mind and body are, well, they're connected massively, and it massively affects. They both affect each other. So you know, you're in a negative mindset, it's going to affect your body no matter what. I believe trauma's trapped in people's bodies and stuff like that. But that's another podcast.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So what advice, Sam, would you give to anyone out there listening? You know, if we've still got people that are listening this long into the 2 episodes, what advice would you give someone that was either like, you know, sober curious, they've maybe not got a massive problem but they want to get sober, or someone that's just on their first couple of weeks or months of sobriety and they're struggling a bit?
Just open your mouth, ask for help, and now there is so much help out there. You know what I mean? Reach out. Like I'm not fully on the Instagram groups and stuff like that you are, but from what you've told me now, there's just so many groups out there of people trying to help each other. You know, the drugs and alcohol services, there is help out there. So just open your mouth, tell someone that you're struggling, and it's absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. You know, because you know, if you had cancer, you wouldn't be ashamed of that, would you? You know, of telling someone you had that. So it's an illness. It's an illness. It's just it's kind of a mental illness. Yeah. You know, so please open your mouth and just get help. And there's a lot of help out there.
Yeah, there is. There could be. There definitely needs to be more, but there are a lot of places that are now, you know, helping people, and I think we are seeing a change in people's attitudes, because there's so many people that, you know, even 10 years ago, I'm sure you found when you said you didn't drink to people, they'd be like, oh, what? But now people are just acceptance of it. You know,
even that's becoming a little bit more normal, which is good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? People say they don't drink. Sometimes, depending on the environment, it'll be like, oh, fucking hell, what do you mean you don't drink? But a lot of the times, it's like, oh, no, it's accepted.
You don't have to. You know? I remember even 5 years ago when I was getting sober, and I'd see these little things on Instagram, and it was like excuses. And it was like, tell people you're going for a run tomorrow, or tell people you have to drive, or say to people you're not feeling that great. Or, do you know what I mean? And all these different excuses. And I was like, yeah, why can I not just say that I don't drink because I absolutely smashed it for a long period of time and I'm just retiring from it now, you know? And I was always like, yeah, just tell people I don't drink. But I know it's difficult for a lot of people, and it's a weird stigma that's still around. I remember we had a teacher in the meetings. I haven't heard from him for a few years, but he was a school teacher, primary school teacher, and he didn't want anyone to know, and that's understandable.
Yeah.
But and then it opens another question. It's like, actually that teacher who's in recovery, and I think he was like a year sober, he's actually probably a better teacher than some of the other teachers that are going home and drinking a bottle of wine because the kids have been little brats all day. You know, he's more responsible, more dependable, and but he was embarrassed to say it. He didn't want people to know.
In all honesty, his internal voice or whatever he's saying, he's embarrassed, but he's probably the best teacher, freaking role model.
Absolutely.
To explain that and get that. Get talking to the kids about it. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
And I said that to him, but he said, yeah, I get what you're saying, Jimmy. He said, but like, this is still a day and age where we live in, that if any of the mothers and teachers got wind of that, they'd be like, well, we don't want our kids going to school with an alcoholic.
No, and
that's again that word, which I hate that word. I know we've used it a lot in the podcast, but you know, I don't consider myself an alcoholic anymore because I'm in recovery. And if anything, I was an alcoholic and I'm now in recovery, or I'm an alcoholic in recovery. But I think that word still has this horrible, horrible negative connotation to it.
Yeah, and it'll take a lot.
It's just a word that kind of one word fits all. Yeah.
But it is changing.
It is, absolutely. Is there anything else you wanted to add to the listeners of the podcast, Sam?
I just want to say, to be honest, while we're on this, I just want to say how proud I am of you, man. No, I mean it.
Thanks, man.
I mean it. Like I've said it off air, but and I know I'm slightly younger than you and that, but like, because I was part of your journey in the earlier days when you're in Ocean. I weirdly feel like a proud uncle.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
The bigger brother or something. Yeah.
Whatever. No, I don't know why uncle comes up, but it is. And just to see your progression, because obviously, like, I met you in a professional sense, and now we've met properly. Mm-hmm. I've been following you obviously on Facebook and stuff, but it's just to see how you've developed. You you're getting married. You've created your business, you do your photography, your beautiful cottage. It's just like, wow, man. It's just, honestly, look, I'm smiling. It makes me so happy.
You're making me a bit emotional, man. Come here.
Hug on air, man.
Hugs, not drugs, man.
Honestly.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate
Wonderful.
that. Sam, it's been so good having you over here, mate.
No, I've loved it, honestly.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, I don't think I've talked this long about myself for a long time. So
well, it's been an amazing episode, mate, or 2 episodes. I know everyone is going to get a lot. Mate.
Well, hopefully
a lot of people are going to get a lot out of this. But thank you so much for coming over and doing it, man. And today we're going to have a little cheeky barbecue. We're going to have Jen families are going to come round, and it's a beautiful day, so we're going to do that. And then you're on the boat back this evening, so so as I say, anytime you want to come back here, mate, my door's always open.
So that's much appreciated, man. It'll probably will be soon. I love it over here. I'm a convert.
And you've seen it. You've seen it yesterday in pretty miserable wet days.
But
so
still,
today's
man,
going to be stunning.
The vibe of the place, I love it.
Yeah.
This is kind of my place, my sort of place. Definitely. Cool. That's the thing. Get out in nature, people.
Get out in nature,
definitely.
People. Thanks, Sam. It's been an absolute honour and a pleasure to have you on the podcast, mate. So thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
Blesses. Cheers. Bye-bye. First and foremost, thank you so much, Sam. An amazing, incredible, epic journey down your, kind of life story there up until now. And thank you to everyone who's listened thus far. I know they've been long episodes, but listening back myself, they've just had a good real flow to them. The sounds a wee bit quiet in some spots, but I had ordered some new microphones, but unfortunately they didn't arrive in time for Sam being here, so unfortunate for that. But I think it still works really well, and we just had a great time, kind of catching up, also getting to know each other. As I said, Sam and I only knew each other on the kind of inpatient service user and counsellor relationship, so it was really nice to kind of get to know each other on a peer level. And Sam was completely kind of taken in by the magic of this island that got me and helped me get sober. So he was talking about, I'm moving here, so watch this space. But yeah, thanks again, Sam. Thanks to everyone who's been listening to the podcast. If you just hit the subscribe button, the follow button on whatever platform you're listening, hit the 5-star review if you like it. If you're wanting to give me a 1-star review, then please, explain your case, leave me a little comment. I will reply to all comments. On Spotify. I don't think you can on Apple, but if you've got any grievances or qualms with the podcast, just let me know. Send me a DM. My DMs on Instagram are always open, so the feedback is always welcome, however brutal it may be. But yeah, thanks again for listening to the 2 epic episodes from Mr. Samuel Lowry. And until next week, stay safe, stay strong, stay supportive, and stay sober. Bye-bye. Peace.